Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Facebook Live today, which I'm doing with one of my amazing authors. Her name is Jasmine Ward, and she is my youngest author, which is so amazing. I'm so proud of the work that she's doing at this stage in her life. I want to introduce her for a minute before she comes on. She is a rental agent at the Rental Girl. She studied fashion at FITM, and she was in the Air Force, which is really amazing. She came to me to write this book, and we're going to talk to her about it today, about the process that she went through, and basically what she transcended and went through to write this book. And so I've done the invitation to her, and we're going to give this a try and see if she can come forward on the Facebook Live, and if it doesn't work, then we're going to start it again. And here she is. Yay! I'm going to approve her. She's adding. Oh God, writing a book is easy. Doing Facebook Lives is, God, it's not for the faint of heart. That's all I have to say. Is here she comes. Hey,
Hi.
how are
Hey.
you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I was just saying, writing a book is easy after trying to do Facebook Live. It's always like, oh my God, are we in the
I
right?
know. This is my first time doing Facebook Live.
Congratulations. You look fabulous. This is your fashion sense from FITM. This is like why you always show up for every call you're with me, and you look so good, and I'm like, oh my God. Why do I pick fashionable clients?
No. Thank you. My hair's like still wet. I like, threw it. Yeah.
You're showing up as the authentic you.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, being an author these days is not, the old, person sitting necessarily in the room, crouched over the computer, no one sees them. And I don't mean old person. I mean, you know what I mean? Like the quintessential crotchety old writer. Now, like, writers are out in the world, they're doing publicity, and they have to be seen, and they're celebs, so you're set up for that. So let's get talking about your book. We met at a Boss Ladies event. I just want to do like a quick shout out to Boss Ladies because I love them so much.
Yeah.
And this is not a plug for me at all. I just want to know, when you met me there and I said I was a book coach, what was it that made you, perked you up for the first time where you said, I can't wait any longer? And then it took you another, I think it was year or 6 months to actually take that next step.
Yeah. Well, the big thing that pulled me to you was you said you were an intuitive book coach. And I'm like, oh, she's going to get me. She's not going to let me slide. And I think I was in a place too where I knew what I wanted my story to be, but I didn't know where to start. And sometimes I had all these like feelings and ideas inside of me, and it was really hard to put it down on paper. So I thought, if I could get someone that can get it, because as you know, the book's it's a little out there. If I can find someone that gets it and can help guide me, then I think I can actually finally write it. And it was very serendipitous because earlier that day before the Boss Ladies event, I was at work and I had a really rough day at work, and I was crying at my desk and like really just not sure if I was cut out for it. And I know that I am, but it was more like I work a very like analytical job, and I just wasn't feeding the creative side of me. And this book has been hovering over me for the last 7 years to get done. So I'm sitting at my desk crying, and my colleague walked in and said she had an extra ticket to the Boss Ladies event. Do I want to go? Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go. And then I met you, and so it felt very meant to be.
And it's interesting because with what I do, you know, I have a website, I have a resume, I have a history, but I feel like almost 90% of my clients sign on with me just from that first meeting, just from that
Yeah.
energy of like, you know what, too many things happened leading up to me meeting you. I'm just going to do it, you know? And obviously we had a call where you talked about the parts of your life that you really wanted to seriously write about and be done with and kind of bring into the book in a memoir way, but still have, you know, a fictional book. And really, it's interesting. Your project is so beautiful because people that write fictional books, they're bringing in so many parts of themselves anyway. They're just not saying that they're necessarily doing memoir, but there's so many parts of your life that you were able to tap into, whether it was the Air Force, whether it was the difficult upbringing, that brought so much texture and layers and levity to your lead character, Arabella. She's a heroine, she's a fighter, but she's also a young girl who's, you know, grown up in some pretty difficult circumstances. What would you say was some of the hardest writings that you did over the course of the 12 weeks? Where did you have that moment where it felt too deep?
The, the whole thing felt really deep. I mean, the very first chapter of the book was, you know, we walk right into a scene of my mom, Arabella's mom, being physically abused by her husband, and that, you know, that's not a place I go to a lot anymore. So to go there and revisit my childhood, that a lot of people actually don't know that part of it, of what it felt like to have an immense like just a lot of responsibility to step in and feel like I need to protect my mom. So writing that and revisiting, you know, younger Jasmine and how that felt was really difficult. But I mean, you've read it. It's one trial after the next, and it's like you can't make it up. Like it's just like one crazy thing and traumatic event after another. And so I'm in a place now where I've done a lot of healing and I've done a lot of work on it, where I don't feel like it really affects me. But to go back in and write from like, you know, stuff that happened to me when I was 5 or 6 years old and up was taxing. Really.
Right. It's emotional. Yeah. And then to allow that space to feel those feelings, because part of this is healing. You know, part of what you're doing is healing while you're writing the book too. And that's what we do as writers. How would you see your awareness grew as a writer through the process? I remember some of the coaching calls, you know, you would come to me and say, I'm suddenly doing this differently, or I'm not worried about this so much, or why am I more frozen than I was in the beginning? And I'm just curious, from starting the book and not really being in a writer's seat, and then being in a writer's seat professionally, what did you feel you were aware of?
I think I was aware of how, firstly, I think I was aware of how I actually felt about things that have happened in my life. I think when you go through something traumatic, you tend to tell yourself what you need to tell yourself in order to move on and to like deal with it. And so I was having a lot of moments where when I was writing it, there was no escaping the truth of how I actually felt about it. So then it would make me feel blocked in writing because all of a sudden, wait, I got to deal with this emotion I didn't know that I had. And how do I translate this on paper when this is the first time I'm feeling this? But the more I started to write through it, I realized I have all the answers. I know how this affected me. I know how I truly feel about it. I've watered it down for a long time. So as I started writing, I think I was able to get to the point quicker. At
Right.
first it was like writing and it was like, oh my gosh, all these emotions, and I want to try to write around the emotions. So I was like writing too much fluff at first.
That's a good awareness.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I'm avoiding getting to the point. So how do I get to this point quicker? Because at the end of the day, it's stories that connect us. And yes, I wrote this book for me, but when I had the idea to write it 7 years ago, it was because I knew it would help someone out there. I mean, if they can relate in any way, I think just knowing like you're not alone and these traumatic events don't define you.
Right. How do you feel about you writing an action book? I mean, there's a lot of action in this book,
Yeah.
which is, as it started to come together, it sometimes even surprised me. I'm like, we've got, alien ships and we have, unknown species and multiple dimensions. And you've had these
Yeah.
ideas for a while though, right? But are you finding yourself surprised? You're writing like a Hunger Games-ish like book?
Yeah. That was not the plan. That wasn't the plan at first. So I was surprised too. We got halfway through the book and I'm like writing action, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's not my forte. But the metaphysical element is who I am, and I have lived like quite literally with my head in the clouds, I think, my entire life. And I had my first telescope at 12, and my bookcase was filled with astronomy books, and I've created these worlds that I'm writing about now a long time ago. And that's what I realized writing this was like, it was weird writing action and writing in some of these like very like sci-fi things, but they're not very sci-fi to me because they've been kind of like, and they're not weird to me either. I think for so long I thought these are so weird and like I can't really talk to my friends about this, and it's like kind of out there. And my friends that do know this about me, like they kind of know that's who I am, and they've accepted me for that. But I've always felt a little like shy about it. So when I got into writing the action part of it, it actually became really fun because I was really like, those were moments that I was really making it real. And so like seeing these little worlds that I've lived in my head since I was a little girl come to life on paper was really fun.
Yeah, and I mean the book has it all. I mean, we have a couple different love stories going on, and another thing you realize, which I don't know if you knew this before you started this book, was that you realized that there were more books, that this was just the beginning of a potential trilogy.
Definitely. Yeah, there's more books coming.
Knowing sort of what you did with hours and time, does that feel daunting to step forward and say, I'm going to write 3 books, I'm going to write 5 books? How does that feel for you? Does that feel natural?
It felt daunting at first. I would say like the first half of the book, I remember being at the 6-7 week mark and being like, oh, I don't know, like if I really do
right.
That's a lot of time and energy. But then once I got into like the flow, I'm already like super excited about writing the second book. And I am a writer. My text messages are long to people. Like I'm always
right.
like I'm just over saying things. So now it doesn't feel. I think getting the first one out of the way, you're like, okay, like I got this, and it does feel natural.
So could you see yourself, should I dare to ask, could you see yourself writing for a profession? Could you see yourself writing full time?
110%. If there's anything, I got a lot out of writing this book, but if there's anything I knew without a doubt writing it, okay, I'm a writer. I'm meant to be a writer. I will happily write for a living. And that's and that's another thing I've known I've always wanted to do, and I would kind of dance around it and like write for magazines but it never was like the same. And so actually putting in the work to write a book, I think by like chapter 6, the same time where I was like, this is a lot of work, I was thinking, but I would do this for the rest of my life. So yeah.
Right, exactly. I always say chapter 6 is that like you're crossing over the threshold to the point of no return,
Yeah.
emotionally. This has been an amazing, you've given the viewers so much to think about, and I appreciate your candor and honesty. What's one piece of advice you'd give someone that wants to be a writer but hasn't taken that leap yet?
The hype, the you can kind of create this hype before actually doing it, where you're just in your head too much. But the second you take an actionable step or like put skin in the game, once you have skin in the game, like it's done. It's like that's the hardest part, is that first step. And that was the hardest part for me. Obviously, it took 7 years for me to write this book, but once I committed to writing it and started working with you, it was done. I mean, by that first chapter, I was like, okay, like I can do this. It may not be easy, but I can do it.
Right. So it was like taking that first step of investing in yourself, believing that you needed coaching or assistance, but also there must have been some kind of shift inside of you that just finally said, now's the time. And I don't know if there's some kind of crossroads in your life right now going on that says now's the time, but it's just amazing how it just becomes the now, and you just have to be ready, like you said, to put skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you could keep dancing around it for another 3 years and be miserable.
Yeah. And that's what it was for me. I got to the point where I was so annoyed with myself, and I was very aware that I'm not living at my fullest potential. And it's the equivalent to when you're in school and you have homework that you need to do and you haven't done it, and it's really hard to be present in any area of your life. You're like trying to hang out with your friends, but you're like, shit, I've got like that assignment I gotta get done. That's how I had felt for the last 7 years with this book. And it's actually just like, that's so stressful. Like, why would I do that to myself? I would feel sick to my stomach of like, okay, I can't keep this in any longer. I have to get it out. So that's what finally pushed me at the beginning of the year. It was like, you're thinking it's fresh new year. You kind of evaluate where you're going, what direction you're going in. And I'm like, am I going to go another year without writing this book? Because I don't think I can physically or mentally or spiritually take it.
Right. No, that's very well said. It is a physical, spiritual, and mental condition when we don't get our book out of us and our stories. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing interview. I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful for you. And I know your book's going to be a bestseller. I just know it.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you.
Onward and upward.
Yes, definitely.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.